Time and time again, I notice these visions. Things that seem peculiar, yet they seem to be familiar. Much of my days really are boring, but end up being average or typical occasions on a redundant cycle. I keep imagining an area of peace, serenity, and it embodies itself in paradise, coming to the conclusion of actually visiting the area to truly see if my thoughts were correct. My friend Noah and I decided to go to this place. With Noah coming with me, he seemed excited and otherwise ecstatic to see this place with me. The area itself is only several miles away, but the road was blocked off due to being a closed off section of the county and not being in total working order since the 60s. While we were travelling, we noticed how far back this area was from civilization. It almost seemed like we were travelling into an unopened time capsule, but that only seems to be an exaggeration. We finally reached the closed route and flew by most of the gates that were open. We finally reached the area on our GPS, but it appeared that most of the area was taken back by Mother Nature, and there wasn't much to see other than old walkways and landings from most early homes of the time. When we were looking around in the car, travelling on the decaying roadway, we noticed that every station on the radio that we tried playing only came up in static. The only station that did come in clearly was some form of religious or Christian radio station, playing mostly organ melodies and church choir, being the only things heard from this station. It was getting later in the day until we noticed an area quite familiar in my recurring dreams. It was an old church located on the top of a steep hill. We decided to park the car and take a look at the church and see if anything remained from this once populated town. Surprisingly, the church appears to be in fairly good condition. The walls were not caved in, and the area around it was maintained, and it really was the only building left in this ghost town. We entered the building with no problem. The doors weren't the best to open, but they managed to budge just enough to fit through. The interior of the church was pristine and looked like it had never aged. The furniture seemed a little worn though from their age, but it still looked like an average church. The art was rather interesting though. Instead of showing pictures of Jesus or his disciples, it showed acts of torture to a woman and other godly figures resembling women, mostly shown in this church or chapel. It was getting darker, but there was still enough light coming through the windows to notice everything. We were still investigating what this place was, but there really were no reports, books, or any type of research located in the church. But as we were walking, I felt like I was being watched, or someone was following me from the corners of my eyes. I was starting to feel uncomfortable and wanted to get away from this area. At first, it seemed interesting. Now, it looks dark, and it should never have been looked at by outsiders. As I walked down the steps and reached the car, I noticed Noah was nowhere near the vehicle. I tried calling him multiple times, but really, no answer was coming from his phone. I had an assumption that he was probably still in the church, but why wouldn't he have followed me when I went down? I really don't know. As I re-entered the church, I felt sick, much like throwing up and laying down was more reasonable than finding my friend. I looked through most of the rooms to notice really nothing much of anything, as if people took items from their own and leaving them in the church to sit here. I really had no idea where he was, but I heard his phone echoing through the halls. I passed through mostly all the hallways, until I noticed the sound coming from a dark hallway that seemed to have not been walked in years. I walked through this hallway, only to notice tons of cobwebs, and it seemed it was difficult to evade them. As I approached an opening, I heard the phone coming from a cornered room that seemed to have no light source whatsoever, so I pulled out my lighter that I used for most of the cobwebs to light the way into this room. The room was pitch black, but I noticed Noah's phone laying on the top shelf near a rusted looking window. When I looked at his phone, I immediately heard a high-pitched tone going into my ear. When I reached my head, I noticed that my nose had just started bleeding. But now, I see a cryptic symbol glow on one wall of the room. When I noticed the symbol, it was too late. I fell unconscious and blacked out right in the room. When I reawoke, I felt weary, and I didn't really remember what had happened. I noticed the dry blood from my nose, and decided to walk into the town. The town looked different from the first time I entered with Noah, but I didn't really feel troubled or worried when I was walking in this area. All of the buildings looked the same, but there really wasn't much change in the area at all. Even with the early daytime, I still wasn't able to find my friend. It almost seemed like he disappeared out of thin air with no explanation. With daylight burning, I noticed a figure walking in front of me. He appeared to look just like Noah. I tried getting closer, but he just evaded me every time I got closer. I tracked this man all the way to an alleyway. It didn't seem like much, but it seemed to be getting more and more dark by the minute. I then reached an area that looked like a diner and decided to walk into it. When I stepped through the door, I noticed the man sit on one of the stalls. As I approached him, I felt uneasy and woozy. I tried talking to him, but I received no answer from the man. "Alright, enough is enough," I said to the man. I grabbed him, but then realized that his mouth was missing. I heard the painful ring again, and I fell to the ground next to the man. Again, I awoke in the same spot I did previously, except the area was full of smoke. It was very difficult to see. I couldn't really see much of anything, but I did notice someone in the corner of my vision. I tried to walk, but it's getting much harder to. Like someone is forcing me to stop. I stopped dead in the middle of the road, only to notice a faint whisper in my ear. It was a woman, and she whispered, "This is your home now. Welcome to paradise. Welcome to Silent Hill." After she said that, I fell to the ground. Thank you for sticking around to the end. If you enjoyed today's story, don't forget to leave a like. And if you want to hear more stories like it, don't forget to subscribe and click that bell icon. That way you'll never miss a story. Oh, and if you haven't already, don't forget to follow me on Twitter so you can keep up with the latest goings on the channel.